Good morning, everyone. It is Saturday, and I am so excited for today's lesson, your Daily Hope Booster. Today, I'm going to talk about the science of hope. So I know many of you who have been following along with me for a long time know that the part that I love about this work in hope is the science, is the proof that hope works, that hope is an action word, and if we can follow the directions of our science and believe in the power of the research, we can absolutely increase hopefulness and our own levels of hope in our own lives. So today I want to talk about the science and what the science of hope tells us about humanity and about ourselves and our ability to overcome tough things. And then tomorrow I'm going to talk about the few tips that I have on increasing your own levels of hope, because hope can absolutely be taught. Like we learned or continue to learn about borrowing hope and how hope is contagious and we can borrow it from other people, we can also learn to be more hopeful. I really believe that hope levels are on a scale, and some people start, their scale just starts a bit higher in hope, and some of us, our scales start a bit lower, but that we fluctuate within that scale, and we can move the scale so our baseline becomes a more hopeful place. So I'd like to talk about the science and what all that means, and then tomorrow we'll talk about tips for increasing your hope levels. Okay? So as you know, I read a lot of books, and one of the best books that I know on this topic of the science of hope is this one right here. It's called Hope Rising, and it's sort of upside down and backwards, but it's how the science of hope can change your life. It's by a doctor called Chan Hellman and his colleague Casey Gwynn. This book was so good for its facts and its data and its analytics, but also linking stories and real life and practicality and examples of how people who have come from really traumatic experiences, had physical things happen to them, and how they've used their hope to come out the other side of those things, go through that pain and suffering and come out the other side more hopeful and employing a lot of tactics and techniques to achieve goals based on their willpower and their way power. So a lot of the stuff I'm going to talk about today comes from this book, comes from research and other studies that they reference in this book. So if you're interested, you should definitely check it out. Hope Rising, How the Science of Hope Can Change Your Life by Dr. Chan Hellman and Casey Gwynn. And I'll link to it in the video notes as well, in the comments of the video. So there have been over 2,000 studies dedicated to hope as of the writing of this book, which was in 2018. So it's really new. But even then, there was already 2,000 studies about hope. Hope has proven to be the absolute best indicator. Every study published on hope is the single best predictor of well-being compared to any other measures of trauma recovery. The single best. Absolutely, there are other measures of well-being. In fact, positive psychology references 24 different measures of well-being, of which hope is one of those. But all of these studies will tell you that hope is the best predictor of well-being. High hope people do better in life than those with low hope. Hope can absolutely help us to overcome trauma, as we talked about. Hope helps people to do better in surviving cancer and other critical illnesses. Can you imagine? In this time of the global pandemic, high hope people are more likely to recover from serious illness. Science, people. Hope helps people navigate their way through natural disasters. Hope can be learned. When hope is high, patients respond better to treatment. We are more likely to engage in prevention strategies, more likely to comply with health provider recommendations, and we are more likely to navigate our way through natural disasters based on our ability to see the future and navigate based on our willpower and our way power. So I've used that language a little bit, willpower and way power. So our willpower is connected to the second part of hope theory, And if you've been watching these videos or read any of my blogs or listened to the podcast, hope theory is equal to goals plus agency thinking plus pathways thinking. So goals is obvious, right? Setting goals for the future. Agency thinking, that's our willpower. That is connected to our intrinsic motivation for why we do what we do. It is where we take agency over what we can control, right? It is connecting to our why, our passion, our intrinsic reason for being. If you think of it as superheroes, they are often agents of change. They are agents of humanity. Those guys have a very deep-seated feeling of willpower to accomplish what they need to do. So that might be an easy way to remember it. And then way power, this is the way we do things. So that's the pathways thinking part of hope theory is how we're going to do it. The alternative options, the scenarios that we need to go through or plan for, the outcomes we need to plan for to overcome the barriers and obstacles that are absolutely going to get in the way. So if we can build up our way power thinking and find alternative options, that leads to higher hope as well. Hopeful people are also less likely to ruminate on the past. Brené Brown talks about shame and its variance from regret. But she talks about shame and how many of our actions can come from a place of shame. In this book, they talk about shame and regret as looking back and saying, what if? This book also talks about anxiety and stress and how it traps us in the now. Anxiety and stress make us think, well, if only it could be this way, in a negative tone. But hopeful people, hope helps us to look forward, and the question that hopeful people ask is, what can I do? What do I have control over? What agency can I employ to make a difference so that my future is better than today? So hopeful people, less likely to ruminate on the past because they're thinking about the future. Hopeful people are typically better at regulation of emotions and thoughts and behaviors because we have that sense of agency, that sense of control over what we can do next. No matter how big or small that step is, we have a feeling of control over what to do next, even when so much is outside of our control. Hopeful people are naturally or they have learned how to focus on what they can control in spite of what they can't. Does that make sense? Hope is about action and intention. The science of hope tells us that those who take action with intention are going to be more successful in life. They're going to be more successful in school. They're going to be more successful at work, within their community, and absolutely within their families. I know I talk about action all the time and taking action, and sometimes no action is action as well. It's key to remember that so you don't get so overwhelmed with the feeling of always needing to do something huge or big. Sometimes an action is to sit in contemplation or meditation or self-reflection. That is also action, and it's intentional. I've found myself using that word a lot in the last couple of weeks about intention. And in fact, if you've had experience with setting a word for the year, intention was my word that I'd set for 2020. And it's amazing how that is sort of coming to roost in my life and in the things I've been talking about and the questions I've been answering for people. Action plus intention is very, very hopeful. So I hope that this has been helpful for you today, talking more about the science. Science of Hope is a subscience of positive psychology, which I mentioned has identified those 24 values related to increasing well-being. If you'd like to know more about that, I have many hope book recommendations that I can give you. And tune in again tomorrow and we'll talk about ways to increase your hope. If you want to know your hope baseline score, what your hope score is, go to my website. There's a free quiz you can take, quick 10 questions to identify what your hope score is right now, and then you can figure out ways to increase it and take the test, take the quiz again in the future and see if the things you've been employing, the actions you're taking, has increased your hope score. Thanks very much, guys. Enjoy the weekend. Bye-bye.